Hi Year 9. Today we're going to have a look at increase and decrease. So, when an amount gets bigger, we say that it has increased. This is probably something that you already knew. But if we're talking about increasing by a percentage, what we need to do is we add that onto 100%. Because when we start with an amount, we're starting with 100% of it. And then if we're increasing it, we're adding on, so we end up with more than 100% of what we started with. So, if we increase by a percentage, we add that percentage onto 100. So here, to increase by 17%, what we do is we find 117%. So all I did was 17% plus 100. If we want to increase something by 35%, we're going to find 135% of that original amount. If we want to increase by 82%, we're going to find 182%. So we're adding that percentage on to 100, and then later in the notes I'll show you what we do with it then. Now we're also going to look at decreasing. So when an amount gets smaller, we say that it's decreased. And if we're decreasing by a percentage, this time we're going to subtract from 100. So if we're decreasing something by 17%, 100% take away 17 leaves us with 83%. So one way to think of it is if we have a sale in a shop and everything is 17% off, that means we take 17% off the original price, and what we're actually paying is 83%. If we're decreasing by 35, 100 minus 35 is 65%. So that's what we're left with. And then if we decrease by 82%, 100 minus 82 leaves us with 18%. So for an increase question, we plus that amount onto 100. For a decrease question, we minus that amount from 100. So let's look at where we actually use this. We're going to do some questions from exercise 2C. So we're going to start with question 1, and I'm going to show you how to do a couple of these. So question 1A, to increase a number by 25%. Now increase means we plus, so we're going to multiply by 100 plus 25 is 125%. For these in question 1, you don't need to write out the whole question. You can just write what the final percentage is that we're going to multiply by. For part B, to increase a number by 26%, increase means plus. So 100 plus 26 is 126%. Now I'm going to skip a few now and go down to part G. To decrease a number by 25%. Decrease is a minus question, so 100 take away 25% leaves us with 75%. Okay, I'll show you now how to do questions 5 and 6. If you would prefer to keep this in your head, you can pause the video and fill in the rest of the questions from question 1 and then play it again when you're up to question 5. Or you can just see all the examples now and then do all the questions afterwards. So, question 5. I'm going to show you part A and B. So, A says, increase 56 by 10%. So, here's where we actually use this. So, if I am increasing 56 by 10%, I'm going to take that amount, that 56, and I'm going to multiply. Now, 10% increase means we plus that onto 100. So I'm actually timesing by 110%. The the way I write that in my calculator is 56 times by 110 out of 100, because a percentage means a fraction out of 100. When I type that in my calculator, I get 61.6. For part B, we're going to increase 980 by 20%. So I start with that number, 980. I'm increasing it, so I'll times by 120%. So for increase questions, you're pretty much just adding a 1 in front of any 2-digit numbers. When I write this in my calculator, it's 980 times by 120 out of 100, which your calculator will tell you is 1,176. So these 3 lines of working are what you need to write in your book. Question 6 is decrease. So I'm going to show you part A and B. Part A says decrease 80 by 5%. So 80 is the number we start with, and we're going to multiply by, we're decreasing by 5%, so 100 take away 5 leaves us with 95%. Feel free to do this extra working over to the side if you need it. So 80 times by 95%, which in our calculator is 80 times by 95 out of 100, and your calculator will tell you that that is 76. Same again for part B, decrease 600 by 10%. So we start with 600, we're going to multiply it, and if we decrease by 10%, that means 100 take away 10%, which leaves us with 90%. So 600 times by 90%, which in our calculator is 600 times by 90 over 100, because a percentage is just a fraction out of 100, and your calculator will tell you that that is 540. So what you're going to do today is the questions from exercise 2C, 1, 5 and 6. I've shown you a couple of those. Feel free to refer back to the video if you forget when you get to each question. And remember to email me or post in our class chat if you want me to go through anything else.